Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Nasta Prayashva Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Somebody wants to repeat? Devanam Sutta Sattvanam Rishinam Chamalatmanam Bhaktir Mukunda Charane Na Prayanupajayate Devanam Sutta Sattvanam Rishinam Chamalatmanam Bhaktir Mukunda Charane Na Prayanopajayate Devanam Suddha Sattvanam Rishinam Chamalatmanam Bhaktir Mukunda Charane Na Prayanopajayate Devanam Sutta Sattvanam Rishinam Chamalatmanam Bhaktir Mukunda Charane Na Prayanopajayate Devanam Sutta Sattvanam Rishinam Chamalatmanam Bhaktir Mukunda Charane Na Prayan Upajayate Devanam Suddha Sattvanam Rishinam Chamalatmanam Bhaktir Mukunda Charane Na Prayana Upajayate Devanam of the demigods, Suddha Sattvanam whose minds are purified, Rishinam of greatly saintly persons, Cha and Amalatmanam who have purified their existence, Bhakti devotional service, Mukunda Charane to the lotus feet of Mukunda, the Lord who can give liberation, Na not, Prayana almost always, Upajayate develops. Translation. Demigods situated in the mode of goodness and great saints cleansed of the dirt of material enjoyment hardly ever render pure devotional service at the lotus feet of Mukunda. Therefore, how could Vritrasura have become such a great devotee? So this is the question asked by Parikshit Maharaj to Sukdev Goswami. So after hearing the narration of Vritrasura, Parikshit Maharaj is curious to know how can a asura, a demon like Vritrasura, who was like a ghastly demon, is able to preach or speak philosophy which is of a Vaishnava, topmost devotional devotees, of a pure devotee. So he's asking, he's perplexed and he's asking Sukdev Goswami that even demigods who are in the mode of goodness and great saints, cleansed of the dirt of material, they are completely detached of material enjoyment. Even they cannot render pure devotional service. So how is it possible that a demon like Vritrasura is able to be such a great devotee? Outwardly he is like a demon. As there is no purport, we'll continue. Śrīmad Bhāgavatam 6th chapter, 6th canto, 14th chapter, 3rd verse. Rajobi samo sankhyata. Sorry, you cannot repeat it. It's not written here. I'll just read it. Rajobi sama sankhyaktah pravri. These days you can still read it because everyone has got the entire Bhagavatam on their mobiles. But anyways, we'll continue. Parthiver hi iha jantava tesham ye kechana hante shreyo vai manujadaya. In this material world, there are as many living entities as atoms. Among these living entities, a very few are human beings, and among them, few are interested in following religious principles. Now, Parikshit Maharaj here is giving the description of how rare the human birth is, because he is saying that as many living entities, as many atoms are there in this material world. So there are infinite number of living entities in this material world. And among those living entities, very few are human beings. So the number of human beings are 6 billion or something, which is like a few. Just in this room, there would be 6 billion living entities, bacteria and viruses and all those things. So he's saying that the human birth itself is rare, and among them, very few are interested in dharma or religious principles. Only few are interested in performing any kind of religious duties, following the Vedas or scriptures. Śrīmad Bhāgavatam 6:14-4. Prayo mumukshavaastesham kechanaiva dvijotama mumukshunaham sahasreshu kaschin muchyate siddhyati. It's a very similar verse to the verse mentioned in Bhagavad Gita, Manushyanam sahasreshu kaschid yatati siddhaya yathatam api siddhanam kaschin mam veti tatvata. So we'll read the translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai for this verse. Prayo mumuksha vastesham kecha naiva dvijotama mumukshunam sahasreshu kaschin muchyate siddhyati. O best of the Brahmanas, Sukdev Goswami, out of many persons who follow religious principles, dharma, only few desire liberation from the material world. Among many thousands of who desire liberation, one may actually achieve liberation, giving up material attachment to society, friendship, love, country, home, wife, and children. And among many thousands of such liberated persons, one who can understand the true meaning of liberation is very rare. Purport. There are 4 classes of men, namely karmis, jnanis, yogis, and bhaktas. This statement pertains especially to karmis and jnanis. A karmis tries to be happy within this material world by changing from one body to another. His objective is bodily comfort, either in this planet or in another. When such a person becomes a gnani, however he aspires for liberation from material bondage, among many such persons who aspire for liberation, one may actually be liberated during his life. Such a person gives up his attachment for society, friendship, love, country, family, wife, and children. Among many such persons who are in the vanaprastha stage, one may understand the value of becoming a sannyasi, completely accepting the renounced order of life. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Caitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swaham Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swaha Padantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Ragunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sahavadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarobhyasya Kripa Sindhu Bhevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasahadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So we'll read the last verse again. So in verse 2 it is mentioned that demigods situated in the mode of goodness and great saints cleansed of the dirt of material enjoyment, who are completely detached from this material world or attachment, they don't have any attachment to the material world, even they cannot render pure devotional service or they cannot perform bhakti. So how did this Vitrasura become such a great devotee who was externally like a demon and the enemy of Indra, enemy of demigods? Because this was one of the things which was asked when they performed the yagna to kill Indra, that when Vishwarup was killed, Tvasta, his father, performed a sacrifice and asked for a person or demon who can kill Indra, but because his pronunciation was not right, the person became the enemy of Indra rather than killer of Indra. So how comes a person who is enemy of the demigods, who are known as the Suras, who are, in many times Srila Prabhupada has mentioned that they are godly or they are devotees. So how can a person who is an enemy of devotees be pure devotee? So this is contradictory. So Parikshit Maharaj is perplexed. Generally there are two sides, demons and demigods. But he was on the side of demons against the demigods, and still a pure devotee. So Parikshit Maharaj is asking this question to Sukdev Goswami, that how come position which is not even given to the demigods and the great sages has been given to Vitrasura. And then he is asking, in this material world there are living entities as many there are atoms. So it's living entities have got no value. But among these living entities there are very few human beings. Few human beings are there, and among them only few are interested in dharma. And from them who are interested in dharma, only few are interested in attaining liberation. They work for liberation. So even those who perform their religious duties, they're not interested in liberation. They're just interested in the four purusarthas, dharma, artha, kama and moksha. So they are just, but only few are interested in liberation. And giving up their attachment, those who are trying to attain liberation, they're giving up their attachment to society, friendship, love, country, home, wife and children. And among those who are attaining, among thousands of those persons who are trying to attain liberation, one can understand the true meaning of liberation. So those kind of people are very rare actually. So Parikshit Maharaj is saying, like even those who are attaining liberation are very rare. And Krishna goes further and says, Manushyanam sahasreshu kaschid yatati siddhaye yatatam api siddhanam kaschin mam veti tatvata. And even among those many thousands of men who are endeavoring for perfection, or those who are trying to achieve liberation, they hardly can know me in truth. So the position of a pure devotee is extremely rare, sudurlabha. So how come, again, coming back here, Parikshit Maharaj is asking how come this demon is speaking pure philosophy, like a pure devotee. How come he was a pure devotee of Lord? Srila Prabhupada makes the point that there are four classes of men: karmis, jnanis, yogis and bhaktas. So before we go into the purport, let's understand what kind of a personality Vitrasura was. So in the 11th chapter, Vitrasura spoke philosophy. He advised when Indra was finding it difficult to fight against him. He advised Indra, why don't you use your weapon which is invisible? And he told that, and free me from all the burden so that I can become free from the karma bandhana. We'll speak about karma bandhana as well later on. But he said, why don't you use that weapon? Destroy my body, which is made, this weapon is made for destroying my body. So destroy my body so that I can become free from karma bandhana and go back home, back to Godhead. And then later on he's offering these prayers to the Lord at the end of that chapter. He's saying that, O Lord, when will I become the servant of your servants? Dasanu, Daso, he's using that word, Dasanu, Daso, and that struck Indra. What is he speaking about? This is the kind of things only pure devotees aspire for. Even demigods, they aspire for heavenly kingdom, and that is why Indra was fighting to protect the heavenly kingdom, to be as a ruler of heavenly kingdom. But here you see a demon who is speaking, I want to be Dasanu Daso, that I want to be servant of your eternal servant, and whose shelter is your lotus feet. So first prayer itself, Vitrasura is speaking, I want to be your servant of servant. And then he's saying, Mana samastreshu prater gunams te. May my mind always think of the transcendental attributes of your Lord. And that becomes my life. That is the goal of my life. So he's saying, let me always meditate on your transcendental pastimes. And then he's saying, and may my words always glorify your attributes, and may my body always be engaged in loving service to you. So hearing this, Indra really became setback. He was now reluctant to kill Vitrasura, because he could understand that this personality is a pure devotee, and he's got a higher... Because Indra has already killed Vishwarupa, and he has already gone through the suffering of killing a Brahmana. And now killing a Vaishnava means he knew that he will be completely destroyed. So he did not want to take chance this time. The whole drama happened because he killed Vishwarupa Brahmana. And now we understand that he is not even a Brahmana. Vitrasura is like speaking pure devotee words, and he is a pure devotee, he is a Vaishnava, he is higher than a Brahmana. So he does not want to take risk, so he is taken aback. He has stopped fighting at this point. And then Vitrasura continues. He is saying, I don't want anything which means separation from you, my Lord. I want to be with you always. He's saying, I do not aspire for enjoyment of Dhruva Loka or even the planet of Brahma. So imagine, he's completely detached from the material world, even though he looks like a demon, but he's saying, I don't want Dhruva Loka also, or neither I want planet of Brahma, nor I want the supreme ruler of earthly or lower planetary system. So basically he's completely detached. And I do not desire to be the master of mystic powers, yoga processes. And I do not want liberation. So now we know the 6 characteristics of devotional services. The first 2 is Kleshagni and Subhada. The next 2 are, so which is at the sadhana level. On the bhava level, the 2 are Moksha Lagakrit and Sudurlabha, which is rare. Sudurlabha means which is rare. Devotional service is rare. And Moksha Lagukrit means when one performs devotional service, he does not even desire liberation. And this is exactly what Vitrasura is speaking on a bhava platform. He's saying, I do not desire mystic powers, or nor I want liberation. Burning in separation from you, the source of all opportunities, none of these things will satisfy me. So he's saying that I don't want kingdom of Indra or heavenly planets or Brahma's planet or Dhruva Loka. I do not want supreme ruler of the earthly or lowerly planets. I do not want to become powerful mystic yogi or liberation. Nothing will satisfy me. And now he's giving his longing. He's comparing his longing to attain the Lord by giving 3 examples. He's saying that Ajata Paksha Iva Matra Kagaha. He's saying that as the baby bird without developed wings, who does not have proper body developed, is always dependent on her mother. So similarly, I yearn for you, my Lord. So first example is giving like a baby bird. But then the Lord may say, okay, if you just want material things, because the baby bird is dependent on the mother for food. And once the baby bird develops wings and becomes full, he completely becomes detached and flies away. So it's kind of material necessity. The baby bird is dependent on the mother. So I'll give you everything material. But then he said, no. Also, a hungry calf always anxiously waits for her mother. So there is an affection. Now there is not only food part, there is also affection part. So he's saying, like that I yearn for you. And then the third example he's saying, even more than affection, he's saying that as a morose wife whose husband is away from home, comes home, wants to attain or associate with her husband and wants her husband to satisfy her in all respects. So similarly, I yearn for you. So these are the 3 examples, one after another on a higher level. Vitrasura is offering prayers to the Lord. Like when the wife is alone at home, she is always meditating on her husband. So similarly, I am always meditating on you, my Lord. So I want to attain you, and completely as a wife wants to be satisfied by her husband, I want your association, and not only your association, I want the association of your devotees, because you live within the heart of your devotees. And so finally he is saying that in the conclusion of his prayers, the first part of his prayers were, I don't want anything material. The second part of his prayers were, I am completely dependent on you. And the third part of his prayers is, give me association of your devotees. That is concluding. He's saying that I simply seek friendship in association of your pious and enlightened devotees. I'm wandering in this material world as a result of fruitive activities. So he's saying I'm a karmi. I've performed fruitive activities, and that is why I'm wandering in this material world. And let my mind be attached to my, let my mind not be attached to my body, wife, children, home under the spell of your Maya. So make me free of this Maya. So now he's showing by these prayers this complete dependence on the Lord. He's showing how he's satisfied just by the association of his devotees. So this shows when he offered these prayers, this was in 11th chapter, and then immediately Indra thought, he is not an ordinary personality. He is a pure devotee of the Lord. No demon or even the demigods, he had never heard such a philosophy. So he comes to this conclusion that I'm not going to kill him. But eventually Vitrasura said, you have to kill me. So he attacked and chopped off one of the arms, and then again Vitrasura is still continuing to speak philosophy and begging Indra to kill him. And he chopped off another arm, and Vitrasura swallows Indra along with his elephant. And by the potency of Narayan Kavacha, Indra was able to come out. At that point itself, Vitrasura had left the body actually. And then we know the pastime that finally it took 1 year for Indra to cut off the head, chop off the head of Vitrasura. That kind of powerful demon Vitrasura was. So let's try to understand now. We heard the prayers of a pure devotee, Vaishnava, Bhaktas, and Srila Prabhupada makes this point. There are 4 classes of mind: Karmis, Gnanis, Yogis and Bhaktas, and this statement is more applicable for Karmis and Gnanis. So Bhagavad Gita speaks about, there are 3 classes, the 3 sections in Bhagavad Gita. The first 6 chapters speak about the Gnana section, or it speaks about, Karma section, but it speaks about mainly the focus is on Jiva. So in the first 6 chapters, Jiva is mentioned, his relationship to the Lord is mentioned, and the process of self-realization is mentioned. There is Gnana section as well. So Gnana and Dhyana Yoga are mentioned in the first 6 chapters as well. How one can perform or perfect his life. And at the end of 6th chapter, there is a verse which mentions Yoginam api sarvesam matkatena antaratmana shraddhavan bhajito yaman samaya yukta tamamata. So the best of the yogi is he who always abides, who always thinks of me, who is always absorbed in my thoughts. So Krishna concludes the first 6 chapters by the perfection of a yogi. He is mentioning Dhyana Yoga and all the other processes, Karma Yoga and Gnana Yoga. And then he mentions he is the best of the yogi who always meditates on me and always absorbed in me. So in that chapter, basically Krishna is explaining how one can come from karma platform. Srila Prabhupada uses this word karmi a lot in his purports. So how one can come from a karma platform to a bhakta platform. And then the first verse of 7th chapter starts with that. How one can become a bhakta, maya sakta manapartha, become asakta of the thoughts of Krishna, and by that one can be absorbed in Krishna consciousness. So just by thinking about the Lord. So it's interesting, I was hearing Srila Prabhupada, there is a story Srila Prabhupada mentions on Vyas Puja day of Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur. So he speaks about a sadhu. When a sadhu is going in the forest, he meets different personalities. And so first he meets a king or a prince, son of king. And to that son, the sadhu says, Chiranjeevi Bhava, you live for ever. And then he keeps going, and then he meets a yogi who is performing a lot of austerity. And he's saying, Jivan api mrityu hi saha. Instead of living, better you die. And then the sadhu keeps on going further, and he meets a butcher. And to butcher he says, Jiva Maroa, neither you live nor you die. And further he keeps on going and he meets a devotee. And to a devotee, the sadhu says, Jiva Maroa, whether you live or you die, doesn't matter. And so the disciple is asking, why did you give different blessings to different personalities? And then he said, to the prince I said, Chiranjeevi Bhava, because in this life he is enjoying, is like a karmi, is enjoying his material senses, and his next life is going to be miserable because he will have to suffer for all the material enjoyment that he is doing. So better he live as much as possible so that he can enjoy for a longer time. And then for a yogi, he is saying, he's performing so much of austerity, so much of suffering. So better he finishes off with this life, and in his next life he can enjoy. He can go back home, back to Godhead, or he can even get heavenly kingdom. And to the butcher he said, this life is also miserable, and his next life is also going to be miserable because he's killing so many animals. So in next life, all those animals are going to kill him. Killing is not a pleasant job. So for the butcher he said, neither you live nor you die. And to the devotee he said, whether you live or you die doesn't matter because you are enjoying in this life, and in your next life also you will eternally enjoy. So for a karmi, it is, and Srila Prabhupada uses this, the karmis and jnanis, they cannot attend pure devotional service. Whereas for a bhakta, it is easy. 4 kinds of people, Krishna mentions in Bhagavad Gita, 4 kinds of people come to him. Artho, Artharthi, Gnani, Jignasu and Gnani. And of which Krishna says Gnanis are the best. But those who come, Artho, Artharthi, whenever they're, of course all the 4 are good because they're coming to Krishna. Akama, Sarva Kama, Moksha Kama, Udardi, Tivrena, Bhakti, Yogena, Jajita, Purusham Parma. Akama, one does not have any desires. Sarva Kama, or one is a karmi, materialist. Or one is Moksha Kama, a yogi. They have to, if they come to Krishna, it is glorious. But for karmis who come for some material needs or because of some distress, they might go away. But person who comes, who is a gnani, who comes with all knowledge of the Lord, they are the best. So, there is another story where one of the karmis go to Sanatan Goswami. They heard there was a person who wanted wealth, and he went to Sanatan Goswami because he heard Sanatan Goswami has got some jewel. So he went to Sanatan Goswami and asked, I heard you have got a jewel, I want that. And Sanatan Goswami said, it's there in the rubbish bin. So this person went to the rubbish bin, picked up that jewel, and he got that jewel. It was a Chintamani jewel which could turn a bell metal into gold. So he went home, he tried it out, it's working. But as karmis are basically always eager to have more than what they have. That's a definition of a karmi, never satisfied with whatever they possess. It's like a grahamedi life. So I heard once, I think it was Kadam Khan Maharaj or someone mentioned, how do you differ between a brahmachari and a grahastha? A grahastha would see anything and keep it, that he will use it in future. Whereas brahmachari would, if it is not used, he will give it away. So depending on how do you know your consciousness, whether you are a grahastha or a brahmachari, then you will give it away. You will not keep it for tomorrow. Whereas a grahastha will, it might be useful one day, and he will keep it. Accumulation basically for a grahastha, it's like that. More than grahastha, it's a grahamedi life. So this person got a jewel, and he was thinking, if Sanatan Goswami has kept this jewel in rubbish bin, if it was, he must be having something more precious than this. If it was precious, the most precious thing he had, it wouldn't be in rubbish bin. So there must be a locker in his inner chambers where he has kept something more precious. Let me go and find that. So he went back to Sanatan Goswami and said, you kept this jewel in rubbish bin, so definitely you must have something more precious than this. And Sanatana Goswami said, yes, of course. Otherwise I wouldn't have kept this in rubbish bin. So the man said, I want that thing which is more precious than this jewel. So Sanatana Goswami said, but first you'll have to throw this into Yamuna and come back. And then I will give you which is the most precious. So that guy, of course, he was wanting something better than that jewel. So he went and threw it into Yamuna and came back. And then Sanatana Goswami gave him the Maha Mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, which is the most precious jewel which we have received. So it is mentioned even if one gets the most best position in this material world, which is the best position one can get in the material world? Heavenly planet or even the planet of Indra or Brahma, which is the topmost planet. But still, Krishna says, Brahma bhuvana loke punaravartino Arjuna. So one has to come back again to this material world. So even that is not the best, because then one has to come back. And it is interesting, Devotee in the 3rd canto mentions this in the 23rd chapter. She mentions at the end of that chapter saying that Neha yat karma dharmaya na vairagya, Neha yat karma dharmaya na vairagya kalpate na tirtha pada sevaye jivan api mrityu hi saha. And so he's saying that if the religious duties, if one performs the religious duty, that if it does not culminate into detachment, and that detachment does not culminate into the service of the Lord, then jivanapi mrityu hi saha. That kind of life is better to die than it is considered death, although he is breathing. So our religious duties should culminate into detachment or vairagya, and that vairagya should culminate into service, devotional service. Otherwise, it's going to bind us, as it is mentioned, karmana bandhana. So it is mentioned, if one, there are 3 kinds of activities mentioned: karma, vikarma, and akarma. So karma are the activities which are performed based on the scriptural injunctions. One is performing all the religious duties and performing activities, that is karma. But even karma binds one to the material world. One has to enjoy the results, or one has to suffer for the reactions. And then there is vikarma, where one does not follow the injunctions of the scriptures. One performs irreligious activities, and then one has to come and suffer the results. But one should perform, as it is mentioned in Bhagavad Gita, how to get rid of karma bandhana, is one should perform akarma. Akarma are the activities where one completely gives up the attachment. One performs the same activities. Actually, if you see the activities performed by a karmi or a akarmi is the same, a devotee is the same. Externally it looks like the same activity, but there is a difference in the consciousness of performing those activities. One binds one to the material world. There is a phrase called, in that section, Srila Prabhupada makes the point of apavarga, which is liberation, and pavarga, which is bondage to the material world. Pa, fa, ba, bha, ma. Pa is parishram. One acts day and night. One is working hard in this material world. And then because of that hard work, what happens? One becomes exhausted, fena. Prabhupada gives the example of a horse. When the horse is running, there is a saliva dropping from his mouth. He's working hard. Donkey, horse, they are working hard. The saliva dropping, fena is dropping. So one works hard. And then bhyartha. Srila Prabhupada said, it's all waste. At the end of the day, it's all useless. We know, especially in the IT world, these days, every 6 months the technology changes. And whatever you do, by the time you learn the technology, you work on that project, and by the project finishes, the technology has already changed. So you have to again start with migration of that particular project that you worked on to something new. So it's interesting, IT was meant to reduce jobs, but it is creating more and more jobs. There are more people in IT these days than in any other field, because everybody is busy just in migration work. So they're migrating from what was done to something new. And after a few years, when you are tired of upgrading yourself with new technology, there are new people required. Fresh batch. And that is why many of the companies, they just take freshers, because they know freshers know more than experienced people these days. So in IT, the fresher would know the latest technology, whereas the experienced 5 or 10-year-old people, they would be outdated by now. So this is vyartha, everything is useless. And then bhai, everyone is fearful. So people work hard, they are in the company for 10, 15, 20 years, and then they are fearful that the company is going to make them redundant. So there is always a fear of how will they pay their mortgage. And then in that fear, in the old age, what happens? Ma. Pa, fa, ba, bha, ma. Ma is mrityu, death. So death overcomes them, and then they start again in their next life with learning A, B, C, D. A for apple, B for boy, C for cat. So this is the process of material existence. The karmi goes through this process life after life after life. So it is recommended that one cultivate gnanam, or knowledge of the spirit. And again, knowledge is of two. One is speculative knowledge, and the other is knowledge of the supreme, knowledge of the absolute. Krishna speaks about knowledge in Bhagavad Gita, knowledge of the absolute. So, which is opposite of ignorance. The reason we are in this material world is because of avidya, ignorance. So, when we cultivate knowledge, it takes us away from ignorance. We go into the opposite of ignorance. And one can realize his eternal position by cultivating that knowledge. So Rupa Goswami mentions this 6 characteristics of devotional service, starting from Kleshagni. And in that Kleshagni, we know the reason why we are there is because of avidya, which the first thing, when we come into the material world, because of ignorance that we can live separately from Krishna, and there is a seed of desire or committing sinful activities shown into the heart of the living entity. So because of that seed, one commits sinful activities, and then one has to bear the reaction, aprarabdha reactions and prarabdha, which are unmanifest and manifest reaction. And by that, we are again having a proclivity to commit further sins, kutam, and which again sows another seed of avidya, or to commit sinful activities, bijam, in the heart of a living entity. So this cycle continues life after life, and one goes into the cycle of it's like a quicksand. One keeps on going further down into the material world in ignorance. So what does the devotional service do? The devotional service burns this seed. Prabhupada makes a point that when the seed is burned, it cannot fructify. So the devotional service, the process of bhakti, burns this seed of bijam, which is of sinful activity. And once that seed is burned, it cannot fructify into papam. One loses the kutam, the proclivity to commit further sins. So as Prahlad Maharaj is mentioning Prahlad Maharaj mentions to Hiranyakashipu, Matirna Krishna Pratha Swatova Mitho Abhipatya Graha Vritanam Adanta Gobir Visatam Tamishram Puna Puna Charvita Charvananam. So the living entity is basically again and again, because of the uncontrolled senses and living in the materialistic way of life, they again and again chew which has already been chewed. There is nothing fresh in this material world. So if you look at the life of each and every living entity, basically they are born, they go to school, they have been loved by the parents, they go to school, sometime they get educated in material science or material knowledge, and then they start working. They get married, they have children, the children grow older, they start to make some investments for the children, for themselves, and then look after the children, grandchildren, and then finally retire and die. So everyone goes through this cycle of birth, getting old, sustenance, products, byproducts, dwindling, and death. Bhagavad Gita mentions this transformation of a living being in the material world. The body goes through these changes, 6 changes. So there is nothing new anybody does except for going through this cycle, and this happens life after life, and this does not happen only for humans, it happens for all the living entities. So Prahlad Maharaj is saying that the inclination towards Krishna is never aroused. One has to work hard. Prabhupada makes this point in one of the purports. He mentions that the yogis think that bhakti is easy, but bhakti is not easy. It is, the process is easy, but to attain it's not easy. To get Sri Krishna Akarshani, or to get to the platform of pure devotional service, is not so easy. One has to work, one has to surrender for it. It's interesting, Arjuna in the 3rd chapter asks Krishna that why is one impelled to perform sinful activities, as if unwillingly, and it is enforced by, he is engaged by force. So every living entity is forced to act in the sinful way, and then Krishna says it is kama isha, krodha isha. So it is just because of lust which gets converted into wrath. So it is lust only which is the enemy, all devouring, sinful enemy of this world. So it is just because of that lust, go into the hellish species of life. So one has to perform bhakti which will convert this lust into love for Godhead. And so the reason we are here, because that love was converted into lust, and now we perform bhakti which converts this lust into love. And what is the process? It is mentioned Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to this material world, and in the initial verses it is mentioned, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami mentions that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is like a king who is drunkard. A drunkard king, when he goes out and opens his treasure house and gives away all his wealth. When the king is drunk, he is not in consciousness. He gives away his wealth, and when he starts giving away his wealth, he does not discriminate whom he is giving. He throws away, he gives everything from his treasure house. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is like that. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says that he has come out and is giving away the holy name freely, which is the treasure which binds Krishna actually. He is giving away that treasure to each and everyone without looking at qualification. One is qualified or not qualified to have that treasure. So this is the position of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and even though the process is difficult, but still Chaitanya Mahaprabhu made it so easy that anyone, there is not even hard and fast rule to, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, to perform this. In Sikshastakam he is mentioning, there is no hard and fast rule to chant the holy names of the Lord. One can chant in any state of mind. So we are fortunate to have access to this process. In Ishopanishad, one of the purports, Srila Prabhupada makes the point that, and this is the last point I'll make, in Ishopanishad, Srila Prabhupada makes this point that this body is like the material ocean, and the living entity is like the boat, and the spiritual master is like a boatman, and the facilities which we get are like the favorable breezes. And when one utilizes those favorable breezes, we are fortunate to have suitable or favorable breezes, which is the process we have got, the association of the devotees, the prasadam, the access to scriptures like Śrīmad Bhāgavatam and Bhagavad Gita. So all these are favorable breezes. So if we can utilize all those things, we can cross over the ocean of material suffering. And Srila Prabhupada makes a point after that, if one does not utilize these favorable breezes which he has got in this life, then he is the most unfortunate person. So this is, we are fortunate, so fortunate that we have got the association of devotees, the Maha Mantra, the prasadam, the books, everything is there. All we have to do is be in the association of the devotees and follow the process. And that is so simple that we can easily cross the ocean of nescience. So if we cannot make use of this process, then we are most unfortunate. Okay, I'll stop here. Are there any questions or comments? Yes, Sylvia. Hare Krishna. Why does he get the sinful reaction? Yeah, he was not helping Vitrasura. He had a choice. Indra had a choice to not kill Vitrasura. But again, the demigods, Lord Brahma, Lord Vishnu, and all the other demigods mentioned that they will help Indra to overcome the sinful by performing Aswamedha Yagna. So he killed. So on one, it's a Leela basically, on one platform. But on the other platform, why did Indra kill Vitrasura? Or why did Indra kill even before that Vishwarupa? They were siding the demons, what else? He wanted to enjoy? Yeah, he wanted to enjoy the heavenly kingdom. He wanted to be the ruler. So there was little bit of material desires in his heart as well. So first time when he killed Brahmana, he had to suffer the reactions. And next time when he killed, and that is why when he heard Vitrasura, he was reluctant to kill. He was not ready to kill him. And that is why he was just fighting as a defensive fight. He was not trying to attack and kill him. But when all the demigods and Lord Vishnu himself told that you need to kill him, then he went and killed him. So he was just following the orders of Lord Vishnu. But yeah, why did he get the results? But because every action in the material world has to have some reactions. So that is why, and killing a pure devotee has some effects on you. So not some, but a lot of effects, right? But yes, he's just following the orders given to him by Lord Vishnu on that level. So, and he had to perform 100 or 1,000 years of austerities, and then that result was nullified. So yes, you get reactions in this material world, whatever you do, good or bad. Does that answer your question? Okay. All right, we'll stop here. Granth-raj Śrīmad Bhāgavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you. Thank you.
May I have your bouquet?
Oh, yeah, sure.
I keep for a little while, then I give it to someone else.
You take them.
I keep for myself for a little while, then I give it to someone else who takes them all and puts it in water by his bedside. So
That's good. At least some use of it.
We get as much use from this one as
Definitely, that's good. Thank you, bro.
Thank you, Prabhu. Very good class.
Thank you.